Panorama, National Council of State meets, approves state pardon for 45 Nigerians. And ahead of Edo governorship election, correspondent examines political development from the angle of peaceful atmosphere as a component for election and democracy. Good afternoon. This is Panorama, reaching you from the Benin Network Center, and I am Agatha Egwari Ojo. You're welcome. An extraordinary summit of ECOWAS Authority of Heads of State and Government on the socio-political situation in the Republic of Mali is underway. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports that the summit is the second in its series since the coup d'etat in the West African nation. And President Muhammadu Buhari is joining the virtual high-level engagement from the Executive Council chambers in the presidential villa. Along with him includes Ministers of Foreign Affairs, Chief of Staff to the President, and National Security Advisor. Other ECOWAS leaders are participating online from their respective countries. The summit is expected to critically analyze the implementation of its earlier resolutions on the situation in Mali and chart the best way forward. It would be recalled that the ECOWAS Special Envoy to Mali, former President Goodluck Jonathan, had briefed President Muhammadu Buhari last Wednesday on the outcome of his mediation mission in the troubled country. The military leaders, he said, want to stay in power for 3 years before conducting elections. They, however, made a case for the ECOWAS sanctions to be lifted as the country is adversely affected. Reports from Bamako indicates that the ousted President Ibrahim Keita, who had been in detention, was freed, contrary to earlier position taken by the coup leaders. Now, the Council of State has formally ratified the grant of presidential pardon to 45 Nigerians in line with recommendations of the Presidential Advisory Committee on Prerogative of Mercy. Minister of Justice and Attorney General of the Federation, Abubakar Malami, announced this after a virtual meeting of the Council presided over by President Muhammadu Buhari. State House correspondent Adamu Sambo reports on this and other resolutions of the Council.
The first time in nearly 19 months, the well-attended meeting of the Council of State was convened by President Muhammadu Buhari to seek the advice of members in the exercise of his powers. Former President Goodluck Jonathan joined the President in the Executive Council chambers for the meeting alongside Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, Senate President Ahmed Lawan, and few members of the Council. Other former Nigerian leaders, present and former Chief Justices of Nigeria and the 36 state governors participated online from across Nigeria. And in line with the constitutional dictates and requirements, the Council approved a memo on the presidential pardon granted to 45 Nigerians.
2 inmates were presented for pardon, 39 inmates for clemency, and 4 ex-convicts for presidential pardon.
The beneficiaries include the late Professor Ambrose Ali, former governor of the defunct Bendel State. The council, the minister said, also approved the appointment of 2 legal practitioners, Namoso Ekanem from Akwa Ibom State and Mahmoud Abubakar Mogaji from Niger State as members of the Federal Judicial Service Commission. Also approved for appointment were Nasri Isa Kwara and 11 others as chairman and members of the National Population Commission, subject to confirmation by the National Assembly. The Secretary to the Government of the Federation and Chairman of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19, Boss Mustafa, updated the Council members on the national response to the coronavirus pandemic.
We received a commendation that our response is well coordinated, is robust, and the level of engagement with the subnationals and other critical stakeholders. This is one response that has attracted even the review of the international community. We will not relent in our efforts as members of the Presidential Task Force, but we will continue. in an accelerated manner.
The National Security Advisor, Babagana Mungno, who briefed the Council on the general security situation in the country and efforts at mitigating the challenges, announced the approval for the establishment of the National Center for the Control of Small Arms and Light Weapons to be domiciled in his office.
This center will provide the strategic framework for containing the proliferation of small arms and light weapons, especially those coming from across our borders within the sub-region and also those coming in through the maritime environment. And I want to reassure you that a lot is being done in conjunction with other entities of government to deal with problems that I may not mention here.
Already, he said, President Buhari has approved continued recruitment into the armed forces and the police, increased state-of-the-art equipment procurement that will serve the force multipliers, and also ordered better synergy and collaboration within the security agencies. The council was also briefed on the state of the nation's economy as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and drop in oil prices.
And the current coordinated efforts of the federal government to contain the COVID-19 pandemic, and especially the 2.3 trillion naira economic stimulus plan, would reposition the economy on a sustainable path of rapid recovery.
Even though our resources are scarce, but I think we are facing the right direction, and for us in the National Assembly, we will continue to approve good policies of government, especially when it comes to areas that will touch the lives of the most ordinary man to help him survive this situation and even do better after the COVID situation.
The National Assembly, he said, is impressed with what has been achieved so far in keeping the economy afloat. From the State House, Adamu Sambu, NTA News.
Akinwumi Adesina has won election for a second term of 5 years as President, African Development Bank. This is coming as Nigeria and other African leaders challenge the management of the bank on social and economic development strategy post-COVID-19. Musa Babaliu reports.
The African Development Bank is holding its annual general meeting virtually in compliance with COVID-19 protocols. The general meeting coincides with the time the bank is due to elect another president. Akinwumi Adesina of Nigeria presented himself for re-election, in which he was the sole candidate. He was endorsed by the governing board and returned elected. Adesina, the first Nigerian to hold the post of the bank's president, expressed his readiness for the vital work ahead.
With the pandemic, Africa has lost over a decade of economic growth. Africa's recovery will be long and difficult. Now we must help Africa to build and to build back boldly, but smartly, paying greater attention to quality growth, health, climate, and environment.
Before the re-election of Akinwumi Adesina, he was confronted with an allegation of what was described as whistleblower on issues relating to the bank's policy and integrity. The governing board of the bank exonerated the AFDB president from all the allegations leveled against him and declared him free to contest his second term in office. Other stakeholders of the bank, including past African leaders, are emphasizing that based on the principles governing the bank, no nation has the power to remove the president or any director of the bank.
I believe that a successful virtual annual meeting and the election of the president will send a strong signal to the world and regional member countries that the African Development Bank remains a strong and stable bank that will continue to partner with the continent in its developmental efforts, particularly at this time of global uncertainty and severe challenges.
President Alassane Ouattara of Cote d'Ivoire challenged the governing board of the AFDB to come up with ambitious policy towards improving the socio-economic well-being of the people, which were disrupted by coronavirus pandemic. In Abuja, Musa Baba Aliyu, NTA News.
On behalf behalf of the federal government and the entire people of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari congratulates President of the Africa Development Bank, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, on his re-election for a second term in office. The news of the victory came during the National Council of State meeting, which was attended by former heads of state, Senate President, former Chief Justices of Nigeria, governors, and ministers and senior government officials. Elizabeth Omori has details of the congratulatory messages.
Released by the Special Advisor to the President on Media and Publicity, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, announced the good news. Nigeria and Africa, the President noted, are honored by the victory, which is a testimony of his hard work and commitment to the development of the continent. The President extends appreciation to the African Union for its endorsement of the AFDB's President much earlier, and to shareholders of the bank and the international community as a whole who worked tirelessly to ensure the return of the visionary leader. President Buhari believes Dr. Adesina's versatility and experience at both national and international engagements will energize the Pan-African financial institution, urging him to remain focused and steadfast in pursuing the noble goals of making life better for Africans through various development plans already captured as high fives. President Buhari rejoices with family, friends, and professional colleagues of Dr. Adesina over the re-election, while commending members of staff and board of governors of the AFDB for their consistent support for the former Nigerian Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development and his management team, while pledging full support of his government to ensure a successful tenure for the AFDB leadership. President Buhari prays that the Almighty God will continue to strengthen Dr. Adesina and his team for greater good to the continent. In Abuja, Elizabeth Omori, NTA News.
Chairman, Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, says the commission is greatly concerned about some of the statements, actions, and excesses of some of the actors and their supporters in the build-up to the governorship election on the 19th of next month in Edo State. He's currently in Benin, where he's meeting with key players. Ogochukwu Ona has details.
Top on the agenda is his meeting with the Interagency Consultative Committee on Security, which held behind closed doors.
The security agencies have assured us that they are going to be professional and neutral in the management of the forthcoming elections.
He has also led his team to the Palace of the Oba of Benin, His Royal Majesty Ewa II, to seek blessing for a peaceful exercise and in recognition of the importance of the traditional institution in peace building. He told the monarch that 10 activities on schedule for the election have been successfully carried out, and the 4 outstanding ones are publication of the notice of poll, submission of names of polling agents, end of campaigns, and date of election, and that any acts that can truncate the process will not augur well for the state. The Oba of Benin believes that although the level of anxiety is high, there is no reason under any guise to heat up the polity. He advocates a review of the option of a single term for any elected political office as a way to gauge performance and reduce the trend, where politicians resort to a do-or-die way of doing things.
The current system of 4-year term is going to keep on remaining. I think the advice I want to give to the political parties is that perhaps consider having what is called unwritten constitution.
The INEC chairman is expected to meet with electoral officers and undertake a tour of some local government INEC offices. In Benin, Ogochukwu Ona, NTA News.
And still on the Edo governorship election, the Rotary Club District 9141, in collaboration with the National Orientation Agency and the Nigerian Union of Journalists, Edo State Chapter, have joined other political stakeholders in soliciting for a peaceful Edo State governorship election on September 19. This was at a one-day seminar with political stakeholders in Benin. Peter Oibo reports that the advocacy centered on peace and conflict prevention and resolution. His report is here presented.
The seminar expresses regret on the way some of the political actors and their supporters are carrying out their campaigns. Participants at the seminar urge all political actors in the state to play by the rules of the game.
This, I would say, is a cornerstone of Rotary's mission. We know that meaningful development can take place in an atmosphere of rancor.
It is a program that is apt, timely, because in the absence of peace, nothing good can happen.
The seminar has given us a new direction.
Tolerance is very important in this game.
The seminar also wants the election umpire and the law enforcement agency to be fair. In Benin, Peter Oibo, NTA News.
Now, each day that passes brings the Edo State governorship election nearer. Naturally, anxieties are raised. Calls from a cross-section of the society emphasizing the need for the election to be peaceful continue to dominate public discourse. Adogbeji Ojegba in this report takes a look at political developments against the critical need for peace as the minimum requirement for a free and equitable election in a democracy.
Fear that things could turn out differently in spite of the vocal assurances of peace given by stakeholders as the countdown to the Edo State governorship election thins out. Political actors in the state have been urged to search for common grounds to ensure the maximum participation of the electorate in the voting process without fear of violence and intimidation. This position has been canvassed by a cross-section of stakeholders in the electioneering process in Edo State. They believe that if the principal actors come together and show respect for genuine democratic principles, the people of Edo State will make informed choices and the election protocols will serve all interests better.
They don't come out to vote. If they don't use peaceful languages, in their campaigns, that will make people not to come out to vote.
You should make it issue-based campaign, but parties for now are name dropping, and of course that can also create anger in the electorate.
The stakeholders also suggest that voter education should be intensified as parties market the manifestos of candidates with civility.
The parties are not able to fulfill their members and that kind of thing, so that area is a breach.
Ensuring peace as we march towards the September 19, 2020 gubernatorial election in Edo State.
Edo State has a strong history of competitive politics irrespective of which observers say an obligation to embrace and adopt the route of peace cannot be compromised. In Benin, Adogbeji Ojegba, NTA News.
We'll take a break at this point. Panorama continues shortly. To stay on.
For now, the best and most efficient way to avoid getting infected is through regular hygienic and sanitary practices as well as social distancing. As individuals, we remain the greatest weapon to fight this pandemic. By washing our hands regularly with clean water and soap, disinfecting frequently used surfaces and areas, coughing into a tissue or elbow, and strictly adhering to infection prevention control measures in health facilities, we can contain this virus.
Coronavirus is real. Steps to avoid this pandemic. Wash your hands regularly or sanitize your hands. Keep social and physical distancing. Avoid crowded places. Stay at home unless absolutely necessary. Don't touch your eyes, nose, or mouth if your hands are not clean. Avoid the spread of coronavirus. Coronavirus is real.
Thank you for staying tuned. And now to COVID-19 update. There are 296 new cases of confirmed COVID-19 infections in the country. According to the latest update from the Nigerian Center for Disease Control, NCDC, 85 of the new cases were recorded in Plateau, 46 in Enugu, 31 in Oyo, 21 in Lagos, 20 in Rivers, 15 in the FCT, 13 in Kaduna, and 12 in Bauchi. Delta and Ekiti have 11 new cases each, Akwa Ibom 7, Ebonyi 6, and Kwara 5. 4 new cases each are in Ogun and Osun, 3 in Gombe and Niger 2. So far, 53,317 infections have been recorded in the country. 40,726 patients have been discharged, with 1,011 deaths recorded. Our resumption of international flights have been shifted by 1 week to enable the Ministry of Aviation fine-tune logistics. Meanwhile, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 has launched 2 online dashboards to track the national response and donations towards fighting the pandemic. Mitire Ikben reports on Thursday's PTF briefing in Abuja.
Ports are ready to operate, but the 1 week extension of the resumption of international flights is attributed to other non-aviation logistics, which must be put in place.
It has to do with the online platform, where before departing you are supposed to go fill information, health information, contact information, and pay for your second COVID test in Nigeria 7 days after you arrive. There are some issues because you're going to have an initial platform, and depending on where you're going, it's going to direct you to another particular platform to deal with that. So we're still working on that.
2 online dashboards, the COVID-19 Incidents and Response Tracker, as well as the COVID-19 Resource Mobilization, will serve as transparency and accountability portals for the PTF.
We will continue to collaborate with the private sector in creating models that ensure all our activities are easily accessible by the public in line with the Freedom of Information Act.
Any one of you can go onto these dashboards to see how we are mitigating this pandemic, as well as the resources required and the resources that have been utilized.
The task force appeals to public offices and business owners to strictly enforce its no mask, no entry policy.
If every shop, every restaurant, if every mosque, every church insists on this, it's only then that we'll be able to arrest and slow down the rate of infection.
6 months after Nigeria's COVID-19 index case was announced, the Presidential Task Force is determined to bridge gaps in testing and risk communication towards containing the pandemic. In Abuja, Mitire Ikben, NTA News.
Talking sports now, never in the history of football has a transfer of a player generated a lot of suspense and anxiety as Lionel Messi's transfer. Tamara Ibiwe in this report looks at the transfer saga of unarguably the best footballer in the world.
Still Lionel Messi! 2-1 Barcelona!
33-year-old Lionel Messi signed a 4-year contract in November 2017, a deal he claimed made his dream of finishing his career at his home, Barcelona, a reality. This wish of Lionel Messi, who began his professional career from the cradle in Barcelona and has grown to